Welcome back or welcome to Sexy Business Podcast. I'm your host, Eisve.
And I'm Karolina.
In this podcast, we're going to talk about different topics such as
Love, relationship, business, sex, power, and many more.
So tune in, subscribe, and listen to more episodes.
Okay, so Eisve, today let's talk about anger. Okay, so what is anger? Anger is an emotion, a sensation that you feel physically and emotionally as a discomfort or a hurt or hostility or displeasure, some kind of irritation, and sometimes even a rage. Okay? And this is usually the emotion that most of the people don't want to feel. Okay? And when we do that, what we do, we try to suppress it. Okay? So, what do you think, Aiswa? How is the anger talking to you? What is the anger saying to you?
I think that anger is actually a protective emotion. This is something that I learned from my friend who's a coach. And we like to say positive and negative emotions. And she said, I don't think those are negative emotions, but those are protective emotions. Yeah, because I have my very, very big experience with anger, and I used to not express it before, and I thought that it was a bad emotion that I shouldn't even feel. So when I would normally get angry, I would switch to another emotion. And then I got a realization that actually it's my body trying to protect me if somebody's like overstepping my boundaries and pushing like me into the limits. It's just my way to protect myself. And I even have a story when I used to have clients on stress management coaching. One person came to me and he was like, I don't want to feel anger. And I was like, okay, let's imagine there's a pack of wolves going, and they are attacked. And they decided that they won't be angry at the attackers. What's gonna happen? They're gonna be bitten,
They're gonna die.
Yeah. And somehow in the society we decided that anger is bad.
Yes.
And of course it can go to the extremes, and we're gonna jump more into that. But I do believe that anger is a protective
Mechanism of our system. Yeah. Yes, I totally agree with that. And for me, I think it's again started since I was a little girl. Every time I would get angry or frustrated, my parents would say, stop that right now, or go to your room, or go to sit down there and take a moment and, deal with yourself. And I think that was the point where I really learned that is something bad. Just because I'm feeling angry, I have to be pushed away or excluded, that it's unpleasant to others and I should not show it, okay? And I think over time, this really started to affect me because, when you are a child, when you're small, all those emotions are so bigger and you have less control on them. And probably it's a good thing, because we try to control too many things. But with controlling all those negative emotions, as you said, with your client, he said he doesn't want to feel it, or this is a bad one, it really puts a label that, this is something completely wrong. And instead of, looking at why do I feel this emotion? What happened? What is actually my body trying to say to me? Like what is it my body protecting me from? So yeah, I think this really grown really strongly for me in that sense.
I can also, I remember that in my childhood, anger was perceived as in a similar way. And I do believe that our parents did their best. Now we read so many books about how it could be perceived differently. As you said, understanding why are you angry? But I was also told if I was angry, okay, so go and remove it, get rid of it. And yeah, we had the saying, remove your I don't know, like I don't know what the expression is in English, but like, yeah, as if that thing just needed to be eliminated rather than like expressed and felt and understood why it got there in the first place.
It's not like a part of you, isn't it? It felt like it's something outside instead of being something in you. You had to go and like leave it out there.
Exactly, yeah. I think it's a very core thing where like I think I created, and maybe you created as well, that like part of me is good and accepted, and anger just wasn't there. So here are like my pool of emotions that I can feel and I can experience and is accepted in this world.
Yes.
But this one is placed somewhere outside.
Exactly, exactly. And can I ask you, Eisve, how do you deal with your anger? How do you express your anger?
Nowadays, I'm good. I just like if something happens, I would be like, you know, like yeah, I will react as like a little bit mad or like nothing completely crazy, but I would just express it a split second and then I'm fine and move on, because literally that's how emotions happen. Like if you get like, you can see the kids, the emotion lasts like 60 seconds and like then they switch whatever, like that's the feeling, and then whatever we linger it to, that's the emotion, the story that we create.
That we create.
So if I get mad now, I just like, okay, I'm angry, like why you're doing this, like, you know, why I address it and then I move on.
So you stay in that emotion basically.
Yeah, I just like, I know, I just feel it and I'm like, that's fine. But what we talked about it, that like I didn't know that it was okay to be angry before. And my realization was that when I did an emotional intelligence course, that I was not expressing anger. And every time somebody made me mad, I would laugh.
Wow. Okay.
So imagine if somebody, and how I was explaining that course is that imagine like I am a castle and somebody is like coming and like destroying my castle and I'm like laughing about it. So I'm sending a signal that it's fine. It's fine to overstep my boundaries. It's fine to maybe do something for me. And I even have like a traumatic or tragic experience that I had a partner who had anger management issues, and I actually saw that like it can go to extremes.
Wow.
Where if it's not expressed well, it really goes down and like boils up. So every time we would go into an argument, that person would like go and hit trees and even people to the extent.
Okay.
And that evokes something in me because in my world it couldn't exist. And once that's like, you know, he used his anger against me, there was a big conflict in my head. And that's when I started having panic attacks. Because my body was like, she's not listening to anything what's happening in her world, so we're gonna shut her down.
Okay. Wow, that must have been a very scary time, you know,
Yeah.
having the panic attacks, you know, because it's something that you cannot control.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned in the beginning, anger is actually good because it's a response of our body to protect ourselves. And that it grown to you into the panic attacks. Okay. And how did you deal with them? And
Yeah, so going like even more into that story, as anger is a protective mechanism, in that relationship, I also had like push to have sex when I didn't want to. And I think me being now like, you know, very much me, where I'm like, no, like, you know, if something is that I don't like, I would be just like saying no. Whereas back in the days, I didn't know how to express that. And I think like that's, you know, where my body came up with the idea of like, okay, how do we show her that like this is real, has to be addressed. So how I dealt with the panic attacks, I think is like a different story.
okay.
But I'm kind of like interested because I know a lot of females have this good girl attitude that they need to, you know, always be kind, always be nice. I don't think I was that girl, but it still like happened to me because I still probably had like some fears of how I should express my anger around people. Did you have something like that? Because I know that it's usually one every third woman that has like sexual abuse and so on. And it's like, it sounds such a big thing, but like even like, you know, small things like happen. And I do believe if we like get mad and we get into the rage,
Yeah.
like I can protect myself much more now
Than you did before.
than
Yeah.
I did before.
Yeah, it's a, as you say, it's a very, very strong topic, you know, with leaning into the sexual abuse. And yes, a lot of people think that it's something has to be very big, but actually it can start with the very simple things. Like as you say, you know, with your partner, you didn't want to have sex with him, and I could really relate to that because when I became a mom and I had a traumatic birth in the first place, and when the woman has this, she goes through very long recovery process, okay? And what is lack in this society that men do not understand that, okay, if the doctor said after 6 week checkup, you're good to go, that means we have to do it. We can do it. I've missed out on 6 weeks. And you know what? I felt like it was forced on me. And I did it not because I wanted it, because I felt this pressure. I didn't want him to be angry at me. I didn't want him to complain to me. And, you know, it was all this kind of emotional abuse also in the same way. And yeah, like that built anger in me little by little.
And now you mentioning this, I realized because I was scared, like what I heard from you now, you didn't want him to be angry.
Yes.
And because I was scared of my anger, I didn't want people to be angry as well. I would be like, you know, like, oh, how do I like, you know, move around so the another person doesn't become angry, because like anger couldn't exist in my world for some reason back in the days before I did the healing, before I did the emotional intelligence course.
Yeah. I think it's because in both ways, we see anger as a wrong thing. We don't want to be angry because it's something bad, but also we don't want other people to be angry because we think also, oh my gosh, how I'm gonna deal with this person's anger right now. As you mentioned, your partner used to go and hit the trees and sometimes even people. Okay, so this is scary, you know? So that person already doesn't know how to control his anger, but you as a person beside also don't know how to deal with it. And I think it's a very lack of education and information in general, how to accept this emotion, how to make friends with this emotion. It's a part of you, you know, and how to deal when you are angry and how to deal when other person is angry. I think that's really two important very things, because in my situation, I didn't want my husband to be angry at me. So I forced myself having sex when I didn't want, when I had pain and everything. But then all this made me angry because it built up this anger that I didn't want him to be near me then. I didn't want him to touch me. I didn't want him to sleep in the same room and stuff. You know, so it built it. At the end of the day, we both were angry. He was angry at me and I was angry at him, instead of, you know, probably talking about it and, you know, discussing what we can do not to feel each other in that kind of way, you know. So yeah, it's definitely a missing part that I wasn't educated enough on how to deal with this.
So I think like, what would be the good way to handle anger? Because I'm hearing like two extremes. Once it seems like it could be just like come and go, if like it's like a natural flow. But then like, yeah, we're so scared of it because we see in maybe even like movies and like, you know, so much coming out of it when it gets escalated. So how do you handle anger nowadays when you went through all of this experience? Like,
Okay. I think since childhood, I learned to deal with it by myself. So that was number one. And to be honest, even now in my adulthood, when I get angry and upset, I try to deal it with by myself, you know. And my biggest expression is usually I cry. I go and I have a good cry. Because then it, you know, pushes a little bit pressure down once I cry it out, you know, because the emotions have to come out. Otherwise, they're going to make your body sick. And then for me to deal with the anger, is actually, before it gets too high, start noticing what are the little triggers. Because a lot of times, the anger, especially the one more excessive and bigger anger, is not happening in this split second. It's usually a buildup of something. You know, like they say, oh, something happened and it was just a cherry on top and I exploded. So that's what I started to do. I started to notice little things, what is triggering me. So I don't want to get to that point. Obviously, it doesn't mean I don't get angry. I do.
Yeah.
But when you start looking at the small points and you start dealing with them, addressing them, you know, it's very important to address that situation. Why did it make me feel like this? Why did it trigger me? Then you work this through, and then, you know, it doesn't get as big. And as you say, in some angers, you can just, okay, I breathe for a few seconds and I'm coming down. And I think the smaller it is, the easier it is to be in that anger. Because the moment you are in the big anger, it's very hard to control it or to stay in it, even to stay in it so you can feel it out, you know, let it out. So my points would be these ones that I would start noticing little by little what is helping me, you know.
Yeah.
And what about you?
I mean, listening to you, I want to like distinguish this. It's very important that like it's not just anger that like, you know, you have to pay attention any emotion that is going to extremes. Like for me, tranquility is the goal. So if I'm like super happy and super ecstatic, it can also go to extreme where I'm like, you know, like it's already draining me. So it's same with anger. Like I love to be like in that tranquility. What helped me to do that is to accept every emotion.
Okay.
So when I had panic attacks, how it popped up in my life because I was suppressing some of the emotions. And basically imagine if you're hosting a party and you are like, okay, I'm gonna invite happiness, I'm gonna invite joy because they're so fun to be around. And then you kind of want to leave like anger, sadness, depression, whatever bad feelings outside the door. What's gonna happen and what happened to me is at some point the threshold and the massiveness of those emotions is so big in the back end that they're gonna kick out the door. And like the panics to me were like, you know, I would faint out, I couldn't like move and so on. And that's what happens. Whatever I'm trying to suppress or whatever you're trying to suppress, it will explode at some point. So
And it will affect your physical body. It's not only emotional and mental anymore. It's actually physically being very sick. Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, so solutions for this, there's no one quick fix. I think with everything in life, we are like kind of like, okay, I'm listening to this episode, give me 3 steps or one pill that I can swallow. It's been a process, you know, even to me, when I took that like emotional intelligence course, I took that and after that I jumped into like a very toxic narcissistic relation. So it doesn't mean that like I'm advancing and then I'm not making mistakes of in my life. No, it means I need more learning. And I think after that is actually where I went into therapy and I started like unblocking things from the past that I actually wasn't mad about. And I became mad about like my past, where people, you know, like, oh, let go. Yes, there is that part, but imagine if like somebody has resentment for like, I don't know, 10 years or 3 years, and that feeling has never been felt. It's somewhere in the body. Like there's this book, Body Keeps the Score. So sexual abuse, it's locked in the body. And if I have never expressed and felt that, it will be held as the tension. So part of me was like, oh, okay, you know, like I have to kind of like relive those like horrible things to just like, okay, now I actually was mad. And one of the things, maybe it's gonna sound so funny, but one of the things when I was doing one of the courses, they were like, oh, you know, express your range, like take the pillow and like shout as much as you can. And I was like, this sounds so weird. Then I did it and I was like, my body felt so good because I allowed it to do what it needed to do in that moment, rather than like, oh no, I'm gonna be good and fine when I'm not.
Yeah, I agree. You know, maybe sometimes we try to control the anger also. And as you said, you know, I'm going to be good and I'm going to be fine. And it's very interesting how every one of us find our own way to deal with it. So solutions, I think those are the main ones. First, you know, you recognize that you have this emotion. Number two, you address what are the triggers, who caused it. Number three, you have to find a way how to deal with this. Some people take breathing exercises, some people go for a run. As you say, maybe some people like to punch a pillow, you know. So everyone should find a way that really helps them. For me, it helps to cry. I could go to the beach, stay for 15 minutes, cry, be with the sea, and you know, that really helps me. And as you said, there is not one correct one, but those are super important steps to take to to getting a better result and helping yourself to go through that through that pain and uncomfortableness. I think it's very uncomfortable when you're feeling angry, and that's why we try to stop faster and quicker. And yeah, I think those are the main steps. And you know, do what helps for you. Also, I think maybe the fourth or fifth point, I lost already. Point would be seek help. Okay, uh, you could find a psychologist. You could find a good friend. You could find a woman or a man circles that are becoming very popular actually. You know, just find your tribe where you can get some help, because sometimes trying to deal with that alone is not as easy, depending on the size of the problem and the anger level, you know. So yeah, that would be good. Finding your tribe, finding your people, and where you can feel safe to express, when where people don't judge you. I think that was a big thing when I found in my woman circles first time, that we were sitting there and we were saying the worst things about ourselves and no one was judging, you know. So that was like a light bulb moment for me. I was like, yeah, this is what we need, and this is super important. And I'm so grateful that right now in my life I do have this circle of women, you know, the circle of women, friends, family, that I can be me and I can start to express my anger, and it gets easier, you know. So
Can I challenge you a little bit on this?
let's do this.
When I was going, because I agree with all of your points, identify emotion, identify the triggers, address it, depending where you are in the journey, whether you already like did the healing, you know, that's going to be addressing, it's going to be different. Using the methods that help you, having support. So my support was like one of the things during the emotional intelligence course, and realizing that instead of getting angry and mad, I would laugh. And what I'm hearing from you, you cry.
I cry.
You,
Yeah.
do you think it's anger or do you think it's sadness?
Um, for me, that's how I express the anger. But anger is just the top layer. Usually, behind the anger is sadness, there is fears, there is disappointment, there is lack of love, lack of acceptance, and all those kind of things. So I think the anger is just the tip of the iceberg, you know.
Yeah.
But there is lots of other emotions that are hiding behind it.
Yeah.
And that's why I express through crying, because maybe it is sad. Maybe I feel sad about myself, you know, in that moment. I got angry, but then I feel like sorry for myself. I feel guilty actually for myself. Why did I allow those people treat me like this? Or even myself, why would I allow to cut my boundaries so low that it caused me to build up all this anger and now I have to deal with it?
Yeah.
I think it is many times it's a bit of a sadness and lack of boundaries and stuff
Yeah.
that are actually underneath this anger layer, yeah. And that's why I deal with expressing my anger with the tears and letting out,
Cleansing your emotions,
cleansing.
basically. Yeah. Because I don't have kids myself, but I do have you as well and other people in my environment who have kids, and they're very good at expressing emotions.
Yes.
When I was a kid, like, I do remember situations where if somebody would make me mad, I would, like, if somebody hit me, I would hit back. And I see kids doing that, and we were discussing this recently, and I was like, yeah, I would teach my kid how to
Punch back.
yeah, how to protect. And like when I was also like older, like I was taught how to protect myself, like self-defense, if something happened. So I think like, yeah, like we need that. And I'm just curious, like what do you think is like a natural reaction of the kid? Because you do have kids. If like somebody comes and like, push them or something, like what the kid does, like what is the natural reaction that comes to them? Like the smaller they are, like,
Was the anger? The smaller they are, naturally, the kids, usually they would throw things. They would drop on the floor. They would scream, cry. They would look crazy.
yeah,
Because the hands, the feet will be all over
Yeah.
the place. So they would use actually multiple ways of letting it out of the body.
yeah.
We as adults, we learn to choose one way, but the kids, they do it everything in that moment. And that's
Yeah.
what you mentioned, I think, in the beginning, that, for the kids, the anger comes, they angry and they stop and they move on to the different emotion because they use everything.
Yeah.
Everything. So yeah, that's would be.
Like it never happened. So I think to wrap this up, what you mentioned, like women's circle, men's circle, why they're so powerful is that a place to be primal. And like we have this infinite knowledge, like if animals go through like extreme emotion, like they just like shake it off,
Yes.
And like as you said, as a human being, like we need to look a certain way, behave a certain way, so we tend to suppress not only just the emotions but also how we move and do things in the world.
Definitely.
So that's why I think like having the support, whether that's therapy, whether that's other modalities,
Yeah.
going back like into the primal space, like letting the body like express and flow,
Definitely.
then it becomes easier whenever the trigger comes, whenever like any other situation in your real world when it happens. Because like the body, like I'm not saying that like if something happens and you're gonna like, I don't know, go into a range as a 5-year-old, but I'm saying like once you let go, that because all of us, I think, like we have most likely like a ball of anger from whatever stories and past.
Yes.
Once that is like released, it's a different story how every time we deal with anger.
Yeah. So, what would I like to ask is how you deal with your anger and what are your tips? So, please comment after our video and let's keep in touch. Thank you for watching.
Comment below, like and subscribe.